Hello. Just giving the cards a bit of a shuffle. I use the Tarot of the New Vision, and I have just started to use it for this new installment of messages for you. I use small cards because I have hypermobile hands. So smaller cards are just better and easier. Just a little bit more shuffle. I hope you're having a restful, connected day so far. A little bit more of a shuffle, and then we see what the messages are for right now. Okay, off we go. Feels exciting already. Something in here. Right. Okay, so start off with bottom of the deck, 5 of Wands. So bottom of the deck, 5 of Wands. This Tarot of the New Vision deck is a backside view, so to speak, of the cards. And so this is the behind the scenes, a backside view of the 5 of Wands. So it's basically the same, apart from this interesting, what is it? Looks like some sort of vulture creature, bird. Seems to be hunting that other bird. Just had a massive bit of deja vu, like I saw that in a dream. So it's interesting, actually. This 5 of Wands is a 5. It's kind of like the middle in the tarot numbers and numerology from 1 to 10, all numerology really, 1 to 10. 1 to 9 with a 1 and a 0. 5 is this kind of midpoint, or represents this kind of midpoint. The Wands are about energy, energy creation, the symbolism of fire. So it does speak of kind of conflict, but in the way I understand it, it's as though there's two sticks, rubbing together, because this is it. The Wands are the sticks, so they have the capacity to rub together and create fire. So it speaks of this kind of like pregnant energy, pregnant creative energy. It can traditionally symbolize conflict. So there is the potential for conflict here, but conflict, it actually feels more in this kind of like creative space. So right now, everything's a little bit, it might feel as though you're coming up against opposites, coming up against different forces. But just remember that if you can kind of like find that midpoint, that growth point, if you imagine two energies coming into like this, and this is a really good analogy to understand twin flame, kind of like energy and how it works. So say there's two people and they meet, and what you need to do from that meeting point is push forward. When I first started teaching, I used to talk about it like this, so you can think about it like a triangle. So there's people, they're at this point here, they move in together, and there's a kind of like meeting point, kind of like inception. Then it seems like there's this kind of like repelling outwards, right? But really, in the ultimate, well, I don't want to say ultimate, but in the kind of like no resistance experience, there's this meeting point, and then where does that energy go? It has to go up, right? It's kind of like prayer position. So this 5 of Wands is like equal energy meeting in the middle, and then it seems like there's nowhere to go, and so it goes backwards like this, and then this is people call this experience separation. Really what you want to do is kind of like move the energy up and move it upwards like this to go in a trajectory. If we're doing it from kind of like flattening that down, it's a forward movement. We have to move forward, and that's how you can place it in time. So this 5 of Wands symbolizes this kind of like meeting of opposites, this meeting point where there's this kind of like friction. So in the twin flame experience, it symbolizes this kind of like friction point. It's not really moving forward. If we stay in that point, it feels uncomfortable. This is why most twin flames have separation and also why it's completely normal. Like, you don't need to judge separation as bad, because really how it kind of traditionally works, or has worked, is that there's this kind of like movement out, and then there needs to be a movement up, but there's a movement up in separation. All that matters is that you move up towards your destiny, right? All that matters is that you move forward. You keep moving forward. You keep personally moving forward. So this Five of Wands is speaking of a kind of like reactivation of a conflict point. But when we know how to work with that conflict point, we can treat it differently. So there's a message here around meeting points, potentially after separation, or that, I mean, I'm aware that there's some people watching this that might want to have some sort of twin flame, or find their twin flame, or they're attracted to that kind of idea, because that is kind of like emerging more now, I think. I mean, not that it's always been here, but I mean, like, I would say there are more authentic twin flames having that experience, because it's more in the culture to understand that it exists, whereas previously it wasn't even there to know. It means that there's a meeting, but it's a meeting of opposites. It's a meeting of opposite energies. It's a conflict meeting. So it's kind of saying, if you want meeting, there's going to be a conflict there. When there is conflict, and it's not even conflict, it's kind of like 5 and 5, you know, it's kind of like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as they say. It is kind of a completion point. To meet is always to complete. So if there is conflict, that doesn't really matter. What do we do with that conflict? We use that energy, this 5 of Wands energy, fire, creation, to push and move things forward. If you go into a meeting expecting it to be, there not to be conflict, then there can be, you'll feel disappointed, and then your vibration lowers, and then you kind of get disconnected from that forward movement. Conflict is not a problem, should never be a problem. You know, there's harmony is up to you. You can feel harmonious, and you really should feel harmonious in all circumstances. So conflict is also harmony when you understand it as part of life. If to live in harmony is to understand every single aspect of life as part of life, which is obviously true, then to live in perfect harmony is to embrace conflict. When we embrace conflict, it tends to serve its purpose much more quickly, and manifest in a much less violent way, if that makes sense. So you see the vulture in this card, or the bird, it's hunting the other bird. It's speaking to this idea that when we hurt each other, we hurt ourselves, which is another really good way of understanding what the twin flame experience teaches us about interaction with humans in love. When we try to hunt something down, we kind of like hurt ourselves. So when we enter into conflict and we try to win, so say your perspective is, most probably if you're watching this, I believe in, I want peace and harmony and love and connection, and the other person comes in and says, I don't want connection, so to speak, then if you go in there bulldozing, well, connection is this and connection is that, and essentially not embracing the conflict, then there's more, it creates more distance, and then also more potential for, well, I'll use the word violence, but it doesn't need to be physical violence, but it's more like aggression. It becomes a more aggressive conflict. When we embrace conflict as part of the harmony of life, then, and even if you expect conflict going into that, so say you want to meet with your twin flame and you have this expectation that it's going to be amazing and beautiful and perfect in this kind of like with no conflict whatsoever, that's just not actually what you genuinely want, because life here is much more interesting than that. And you do want to embrace all things, because love embraces all things. You will essentially take away from the experience of wholeness. So conflict occurs when there are two opposing perspectives, essentially, or two opposing desires. If we can embrace those opposing desires and expect those opposing desires, when we go into the meeting, we can actually utilize the meeting in a creative way and use it to move forward. So even if you're just rethinking about the way you want to meet in a physical way, expecting conflict is going to enable, well, it's basically saying that that's the way the energies are now. If you are embracing all meeting points and however they can manifest, when it manifests in this opposing views way, there isn't any resistance to that, and you will move your relationship forward. And when I use the term relationship, I just mean something in relationship to another, not necessarily a romantic relationship. But this is what this is speaking to. Okay, rest of them. So let's get out the rest of these cards. Sorry, I don't know what that was about. Right. Okay, so have our okay. Wow, the Strength card is back again, and the Ace of Pentacles again. Even though I did shuffle. This is so interesting. Okay, great. We're re-speaking. This is so fascinating because it just moved over a little bit. Basically all the same energies here, but just moved over a little bit. So wow. Okay, this has never happened before. This is so interesting. Okay, so we start off with this Knight of Cups. So let me actually show you what we have first. We have Knight of Cups, then the Ace of Pentacles, and then the Strength card. Okay, so these are the middle three cards of our little cross here. So let's put them back in the right order. So this Knight of Cups is looking kind of like moving away from this Ace of Pentacles, but also kind of in the same direction of the Ace of Pentacles. Whenever it's in this position, it always feels like there's somewhere else to be, somewhere else to go. So in relationship to this Five of Wands, it's saying if there is conflict and you feel as though those opposing opinions or those opposing perspectives are causing suffering, even in just the moment, like it does not feel good. But it is completely possible for opposing opinions and opposing perspectives on the way we are interrelating to exist in a harmonious way without resistance. If that is not the case, this Knight of Cups says, just go off and find something more interesting, more flowy, more fun, something that you have a more powerfully positive, generous, heartfelt experience around. Could be a person, could be a thing, could be a movie, could be anything, doesn't matter. Could be shopping, doesn't matter what it is. Some sort of experience of flow. Absolutely do that thing, because it is supported by this Ace of Pentacles. It feels as though this Ace of Pentacles is really being moved into. So there is absolutely this kind of like forward movement, and also this messaging, and why I'm back here doing this messaging now is that there is material support for these relationships. Again, I use these relationships, the word relationship, to mean whatever the manifestation is of your twin flame interactions. You are always in a relationship with somebody else. So just know that. It's more in how you are relating to another person. So there is a lot of the messages, there is a lot of material, as in actual manifested support, new energy of support that is here to kind of ground love. Because really it's just love. So that is what's kind of like behind this. So it's saying invest your resources, invest your time, invest your money, invest your focus in those things which feel like flow, that feel like you really want to go and do this. Like I said, it could be that you meet like this, you come out again, and then the flow is in this direction, because you just want to be moving upwards or forwards. So essentially, time and vibration, say if you put them both on the same, on a graph, say this was time and this was vibration, you'd want it to kind of go up like that, right? So you just want to be moving like forward. It goes forwards and upwards. Okay, so you want to feel good, and you want to kind of like progress vibrationally, which is just how you feel, and really that's being closer and closer to your soul. And you want to move forwards in time. Those two things. You want to feel as though in this experience of reality, that in time, that time moves forward and our vibration gets higher. That's kind of like how you want to feel. Like the time moves forward and my experience gets better and better and better and better. That is absolutely the point. So, but if you just keep trying to get to this point of meeting and you're not moving forward in time or vibration, that is, you're going to get stuck in that low vibration meeting point. So actually this meeting point that you're trying to get to is it's a lower vibration. It's backwards. You're going backwards in vibration and in time. And that just is not the point. It's not going to work. It just doesn't work. So it is speaking of this re-triggering of a meeting point with new understanding that you can gain here, that you have here, on how that's going to go. Even if it doesn't seem like that's on the cards, this is how you want to envision it, or this is how you want to kind of experience this, because you can experience this in any way. You can experience this. You're experiencing it now through this transmission, through this experience here with me. So the shift is that there is absolutely, in the physical world, way more support for you in a high vibration, in a great experience that exists here. It may not be necessarily apparent to you, but you have to move first. This is a massive part of twin flame experience, that you are ahead of the game. You are pushing through, manifesting genuinely a better physical world, a physical world that expresses, that is born from love, kind of like a newborn child born into a world that is just loving and high vibration. You want to find who you really are, and you were born that way, and you exist that way across all time and dimensions. And then you want to experience the growth and the expression and the experience of your soul here in this manifested reality. Up until this point, it has been difficult, much more difficult than now, to have the material resources to live that life. This is absolutely here now, but your job is to know that in advance. You know things in advance. That's part of the twin flame experience. So you have to sometimes operate in advance. You have to kind of like fake it till you make it, or you have to vibrationally experience this reality before it seems like it is your reality. But absolutely invest the time, money, focus into the things that you really enjoy, the things that you really love, and be generous. There's another message here, and I'm going to make another video about this around, or I planned to, around manifestation. So this kind of like, again, it speaks to manifestation, this Ace of Pentacles. Like it's manifesting in a physical way. And then this Knight of Cups is about being generous and giving. When it, moves through you, and it depends how it is in the reading, because it can also symbolize something coming to you. They're both the same thing. So this is the kind of like manifestation trick, is that you manifest for other people. You focus on giving to others. So when you focus on that in a way that feels really good, you will be able to manifest more easily, because you have less resistance around that. Like I said, I'm going to make another video about this, so just make sure you've subscribed and hit the bell. I mean, I'm not a big fan of notifications, but it's kind of like part of your service here as well for me, because, well, our service together is that we have to ensure that we get the messages when we're supposed to get them. And operating in this kind of very manifested world, we do have to take action. So it's not that you have to take the physical action to make sure you get what you need. It will happen anyway, but the fastest way is to ensure that you're prepared for those messages to come to you. You're listening, you're open, you're ready for those messages. You are in receiving mode. So to be in receiving mode, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you get the bell notification so you can get an email or a notification when the upload is there, so that you can get it as soon as you need it. Essentially, it's saying, know that those resources are there. Use your resources to flow love and generosity to not your twin flame. Like, again, like, you do not need to cultivate that. That's already there. But it's about expressing it, taking that energy of love and getting it out into the world. Okay, and then again, third card, this strength card is here again. So what's interesting about this reading is it's kind of like shifted on one, and we got this kind of like Knight of Cups here. So it is, again, it keeps speaking of this service, and this is really what all of these messages here are about, is twin flame community and twin flame service, like actually understanding what twin flame service is in the world. And it really is just first you being who you are, and then you having a great life. That is your service. That is your service to the world. So if you're using outside resources or outside narratives to kind of work out what your service is, it's not going to necessarily be, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. It could be anything. It's just you expressed fully in a high vibration space in the world. What many people don't understand is that twin flame experience, the point of twin flame experience is that you live your best life expressed through your soul. Like, your soul is manifested and expressed here in this reality. That is the point. Okay, so how do you do that? It's spreading the love. Once you have found yourself, which is a process because you are always growing. So that's probably incorrect to express it that way. Not once you have found yourself, once you have found the tools to realize yourself over and over in presence, in the present moment, then, which is kind of like spiritual awakening or spiritual experience, which we'll also go into, then you're to share it. What you do is you share what you have learned. You share the good news, which is really just manifested through your life. So you've got to make sure that that's the path that you're always on. And that can be much more difficult when you're interacting with your twin flame, because it can be very, very consuming. In the same way that a child is consuming, unconditional love relationships are very consuming and very obsessive. If you had a child and it got taken away from you for some reason, you would try and find that child for the rest of your life. Twin flame relationships, twin flame experiences are unconditional love experiences. That's why life will never let you let that go. Because you're always going to want to experience that person in your life, and experience that relationship in a physical way. If it seems like it's not possible, if you know it's there. So this strength card is still there, this strength aspect. If you have to watch the video before this, so go watch part 2. This is part 3 for a kind of like lead up to this reading. If you haven't seen part 2, please watch part 2 because it will make sense for this. Because there's not much I can really say about the strength card because you've already gone over it. But basically it's about balancing this kind of like masculine and feminine energy, this kind of like positive and negative energy, this kind of like aggressive and more passive energy to give and to receive, to play with those two things and know when to take action in those two modes, like a kind of like gas pedal and a brake pedal. And then this 4 of Cups is still here in this kind of like outcome card though right now, and it really makes a lot of sense with this 5 of Cups energy. I mean, 5 of Cups, 5 of Wands. So it's speaking about conflict. If we really want to re-traumatize, because these can be quite traumatic experiences in a twin flame narrative, as in it seems like there's no harmony. Well, let's say in love. You know, when love manifests like this, we're like, well, this isn't how I want love to be. And when love manifests like this, we're like, well, this isn't how I want love to be. I don't want love to feel like I'm lonely over here and I'm missing the party and love is here, but I can't really have it. That's not how we really want love to be, right? So we can have traumatic experiences around those energies. But what we want to do is kind of like have those experiences, which is how I read the tarot, is to be able to be whole and have wholeness in all of the experiences. And the cards are just here to highlight, like a language in time, all of these kind of like notes on the spectrum of life. So this is a note on the spectrum of life, conflict. It's a note on the spectrum of life, kind of like rejection, or like not now, or it's here but I can't have it, those kind of things, or missing out on something, missing out on love. So quite often it could seem like this conflict leads to this. I want to be with you, you don't want to be with me, and then I feel like, okay, the love is here and I know love and I found love, but then it's not really coming to me and it's just kind of like I'm missing, you know, it's not here. When we actually understand that from wholeness and self-realization, it feels like, yeah, conflict is part of life. Actually, conflict is a massive part of this relationship because it is kind of like two sides of the same coin. It is about balance and it is about manifesting wholeness. So when we can experience ourselves and experience another physical being that is also ourself, that are manifesting at the same time opposite ideas, opposition, and we can really embrace that in its manifestation for real, as in when it is happening, then we don't suffer around it. The same with this. When it seems like the love that we know is real, let's say this is kind of like this Ace of Cups here, when we seem like, oh, that I know the Ace of Cups, but it's not here, and I just see these 3 cups, yeah, but it's like it's just not happening. When we can understand that it's just a moment in time, because we've actually got to be kind of like supposed to be giving and not receiving at that time, which is all about, you know, this movement. Then there's no suffering in that. It's just like, oh, right, okay, I've hit this moment where this isn't happening. It seems like love isn't here. Like, it feels like I'm not receiving the love that I want. This Pegasus flying in, it is this kind of like magical, it really is representing, and this is why I'm using these cards. Let's just watch and see how these kind of like spread around now, because trust me, they will. This mystical experience, it's saying the upgraded version of your feelings of rejection is this mystical, magical dimension where you really have transcended the suffering around that, and you're just excited and you understand, you're like, oh, when it's not being given to me, there's something else for me to do, right? Because all of the resources are here. This Four of Cups is like above this. All of your resources are there for you to, but they're actually pushing towards you taking the movement and you being generous. So you want to be manifesting for other people, because there's a potential for an experience of lack and a feeling of lack around your experience, right? So it's much more difficult to manifest when you don't believe something is there, when you're not in wholeness. It's much easier to manifest for other people because you're not in so much of an experience of lack. You're not in so much of an experience of desire, which is also why that can be challenging. So the motivation potentially is less than. You might be less motivated to manifest something that you want for somebody else than you want for yourself. But that's just a really easy way to connect with this Knight of Cups energy. And just to really understand that giving and receiving is the same thing. Because if you really want to get good at manifestation, you want to get good at manifesting in lots of different circumstances. And this is absolutely what this is about, because twin flame experiences are about manifesting a loving world, 100%. So, and because that's what you want, that is your desire. So do that, basically do that. Okay, I am going to pull a Rumi card, because as I was setting up, I did see them and they kind of called to me, and then I was like, if I feel it, I'm going to do it. And I do feel it, because I feel it there's one more, but I actually left them down here. So I'm going to pull a Rumi card. Pretty sure I was one of the first to do these as well. First on YouTube in, I think it was 2014, 2015, not sure. Doing masculine, feminine, first to do masculine and feminine tarot readings on YouTube for twin flames. And I can't remember when I started doing the Rumi. It must have been 2015 or 2016. So let's pull one. I might not read the whole thing, but here we go. Okay, interesting. So Rumi card for this week. Beautiful imagery. The imagery on here is amazing. Sacred Soul Sister. It's backwards because I've got a mirrored video on so that I don't get thrown by the opposition with the cards. Sacred Soul Sister 37. Right. I may not read the whole thing, as I said. Okay. So let me just read the poem and then we'll see how we go. Okay, so number 37, Sacred Soul Sister. When you are conscious, a cloud of sadness surrounds you. When you are beyond consciousness, the moon rests in your arms. When you are conscious, the beloved moves out of your reach. When you are beyond consciousness, the ecstasy of love moves your way. When you are conscious, you are depressed like fall. When you are beyond consciousness, the winter cold feels like spring. All your wavering is due to your longing to be stable. Look for instability until you become stable. So just to break that down a bit, what that means to me, it's speaking of these opposites. So it's kind of saying that to be in love is to not be conscious. So if you're seeking consciousness, if you're seeking knowledge, you will miss out on love, because love is ever present in the spaces in between. Love is not knowledge. So when you're looking at the details, you are sadness. A cloud of sadness surrounds you. The beloved moves out of your reach. You are depressed like fall. When you are beyond consciousness, when you move beyond into this dimension of love, then there cannot be any lack. So it says, all your wavering is due to your longing to be stable. So when you long for stability, you find instability, because we can only create from the energy that we are in. So if you can find stability in, let's say, the negative, if you can find the positive in the negative, and this isn't about bypassing your experience, this is about adding to it. So this isn't about pretending that difficult things aren't happening. It's about meeting those difficult things with positive things. Okay? It's about balance. It's about wholeness, and that gives you stability. So it's not about pretending that you're not feeling a certain way. It is about bringing awareness to the fact that when you are aware of a negative fact that comes into your consciousness, when you are conscious of a negative thing, you will feel sad. And that is completely appropriate. When you are not aware, not conscious of a negative thing, when you are not conscious, and essentially when you're not conscious of positive or negative, if you're beyond consciousness, if you're kind of like love, then there is no, you are beyond consciousness. The moon rests in your arms. The ecstasy of love moves your way. The winter cold feels like spring. So essentially, beyond consciousness is beyond a finite point of positive or negative. It is in wholeness, understanding and experiencing everything from wholeness. So there's a negative manifestation or a lack manifestation, which is part of wholeness. Your experience that becomes that is part of wholeness. And so then there is nothing to fear. And then you can enter into all your interactions in a way that feels like embracing. And anybody you interact with will feel embraced by you, because you will be embracing everybody and everything. You will be embracing your twin flame in a way that feels like home to them, because you are allowing them to express whatever they feel in that moment, and not taking that self-expression as something that is opposed to your joy and happiness. So that's all we have. Namaste, and see you next time.